Welcome to Freaky Fandoms. I am your host, Andrew Hawkins, and today with me again is Deborah, and we are going to be talking about a game that we are both very interested in discussing. Wouldn't you say?
Very interested, kind of scared because I know the fan base behind this,
Sure.
and I know how ravenous they can be, and I'm kind of nervous on how they're going to take my opinion.
Little worried about being kind of critical.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you're listening to this, we are talking about American McGee's sequel to his original Alice. We're talking about Alice Madness Returns. And this is a game that I've always known about since it's come out, but never played until just before this episode. Deborah, you have a huge history with this game.
Oh, enormous. So diehard, like absolute obsessed fan of the original one.
Yeah.
And then I actually was part of the American McGee's forum website for a very long time, and I started seeing all this concept art and rumors about a new Alice game. And then it just sort of tumbled out. My best friend at the time pre-ordered it for me for my birthday because it came out a month after my birthday. I got the art book like before the game came out. And I was like day one playing this game. So it's been about 7 years of me just doing everything. I've platinumed it. I play it for leisure. I want to say I played this game like 15 times.
Yeah, I believe it. Like, it has been out for 7 years now.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because it still seems like, to me, one that gets constant buzz. People are always discovering it. People are always playing it and sharing it. And the fan base is just fucking huge.
And that's like, it's so big. Like there's all this cosplay that's rolling out. It's like when it first came out, it was, oh, that's great. Or what are you talking about? Now almost everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, everyone knows, like, Alice, disturbed, edgy, gritty, evil, that kind of stuff. Like, everyone knows the image. It's not just the Hot Topic crowd anymore.
Yeah.
Or, like, the subculture kids or the goth kids or anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot that don't know about it, but if you're a gamer, you know about it now.
Yeah, and if you've been on the internet, you're probably, like, going to have at least seen one freaking picture of somebody looking like edgy, disturbed, bloody Alice. But, that's just the image of it, and it's so iconic now that it's going to be still getting attention even beyond, us talking about, like, it's going to be just years and years and years down the line. People are still going to be digging into this stuff just like they do with the whole Joker, Dark Knight, Batman, retcon crap.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Like, everybody likes the edgelord kind of
I hate putting it in that crowd, but that's exactly what, like, a lot of the fan base makes me think of is that.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
This is hardcore. Yeah, hardcore Alice. But
Which I have my own opinions on that, but that's not this episode.
right. So I do want to talk about why we are digging into this episode because I want to explore this game. And I want to talk about the themes of the story and the presentation and what this game is. Because it's a lot more than just like a, quote, dark retelling of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's more than a dark retelling. It's more than, oh, Alice is older and killing people in Wonderland now. There is so much to the Alice franchise. And if you dig into it, it's actually kind of rewarding and kind of enlightening, I would say.
There's a lot of philosophy, a lot of really interesting ideas that form the concept of this game. But let's just talk about the story of Madness Returns, and I want to touch on a little bit about the original Alice, which was such a huge game for subculture kids when it came out in 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, these are games, like, the first one was just insanely iconic. Everyone loved the game, the design, the Chris Brenna soundtrack, just
The story.
Yeah, it was like just the perfect timing for that kind of influence to hit kids then. But how does that compare to Madness Returns?
I'm going to go ahead and just throw this out there.
Okay.
People, if you come at me in a respectful manner and you actually are able to be civil and bring valid opinions, I will have a civil conversation with you. But if you come at me and tell me I'm stupid or I don't know what I'm talking about, you're retarded. So
goddamn. Shit.
Just throwing it out there. Like,
Fair
don't
enough.
come at me and be like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. This is my opinion and I'm entitled to it. If you don't like it, be respectful and tell me why.
Well, there you go. Disclaimer wall, folks. So,
this
real talk. Let's talk about Alice Madness Returns. Let's dig into it.
You were asking me how it compares.
Yes.
It doesn't.
One to the other. Okay.
It doesn't compare.
Why?
It's a good game.
Yes. I agree.
I like most parts of the story.
Sure.
But for me, it's not Alice. Alice for me was always... I get that she is a strong feminine character. She's independent. She's finding herself. She's getting through all these obstacles on her own, literally on her own, and having to deal with things in her mind and become a better person and fully whole. But she doesn't seem as strong.
Okay.
There's no actual sense of dread or danger. It doesn't feel like anything is at stake. The whole game is you're supposed to be going through Wonderland because it's falling apart and you need to find out why and you need to save it, and it doesn't feel like it matters.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the specifics of that. Let's talk about the whole overarching Bumby thing, because that's really what the background of this story is.
And I love the story. Like, what's the true meaning behind all of it.
But what you're saying is when you're in Wonderland and you're dealing with all this, it doesn't feel like the stakes are high, like you're in danger behind the controller.
Exactly.
Okay. I think there are times during the game when I feel like an adrenaline rush, but it doesn't give me the same sort of feeling that the first one does by any means. But I don't know if that's just because of the aesthetic and the way that the levels are designed and the kind of visuals that are used. Do you think that's a part of it?
I think one of the main reasons for me is that you don't actually physically interact with the world as much as you do in the first one.
Oh, like climbing and lifting and pulling yourself up ledges and shit like that?
I missed a ledge by a second. I can climb myself. I can like pull myself up.
Well, yeah, in this one you just fall. You're just fucked.
But I don't know if it's the level design or the gameplay. I think it's mostly the gameplay.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a lot of convoluted story that's also missing pieces.
Well, that's something that American McGee was able to give to the fans through something that we are lucky to have a copy of in the design document for Alice 2, which was the proposal to actually get the game made with EA, who eventually was able to, get it distributed out to everybody when this got released on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. It was mentioned that there was a very complex narrative. So there is a lot of that going on, but I want to talk about it. I want to talk about each of the different sections of this game, if you want to throw it down, and then we can kind of put together the pieces of what we saw that was missing.
Okay. And also another wall, I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's a good game, okay? I just have my problems with it.
Noted. What the hell is Alice about? How does it start?
Okay, so this one, Alice is 23 years old. She has been out of the asylum for a year now, and she has been able to get kind of like a job / housing at the Houndstitch Home for Wayward Youth.
Yeah, isn't she like a gopher or like a
she's a maid.
Homebody or a maid? Okay, yeah.
She's a maid.
She wears a bunch of hats for this guy who runs the place.
Yeah, she cleans, she cooks, she fetches medicine, all kinds of stuff. Like, she's the maid.
Yeah.
And his main thing is Bombi's running the house, and it's for kids, and it's like
orphans
and people,
abandoned kids.
Yeah. And he's trying to he's a psychologist who's able to help people forget their past,
right, so
that they can move on past the most painful things in their life.
Well, he also does that with drugs too, right? I mean, isn't that a part of it?
It's mostly hypnosis, though.
Okay.
It's drugs, but mostly hypnosis.
Gotcha.
And the whole thing is she's there. He's trying to help her forget everything about the fire and about her family. And while that's going on, she was released from Rutledge, but she wasn't declared sane. She was like, it was like, you're going to cost too much money. You're okay. Just go.
Right. And I think there was a note about that there was never like a cure or her being cured. That was never a factor in this just because of her trauma.
So while she's 23 with Bombi and she's going through all this to try to forget everything, she's still a little touched in the head.
Okay.
And she still suffers from schizophrenia, hallucinations.
I think attacks. Like she has these kinds of...
She has hysterical fits.
Yeah. Fits and bouts of going unconscious and all of these things that, like, there are parts of the game, because the way that the game is structured is that you've got all this stuff going on in the real world, which is the East End of London, around, like, Oxfordshire, stuff like that.
Yeah, like, around, like, 1875.
Yeah, because I think 1863 is when the fire broke out in her house, where her whole family was killed.
Yeah.
And her cat Dinah was able to escape from, what her flashbacks are, and she eventually got put in the asylum because of that incident. But what happens is that we see everything through her eyes, and we journey with her through London, and then we get to a swap over to Wonderland.
Yes.
But we're bouncing back and forth the whole time.
Yeah, you're bouncing back and forth between London and Wonderland the entire game, and it's supposed to be, it's like you're in London and then you have a mental breakdown because you were confronted by someone about the truth of the fire, and you just like freak out, and then all of a sudden you're in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Or
like there's a part in the game where like you have a real big incident like that, and then all of a sudden you're literally rocketed into a level in Wonderland, like flying through the sky on fire like a meteorite, and boom, you start playing the next level of your gameplay.
Yeah. Like it's stuff like that. And even like when you beat the 4th level, the entire segment between isn't actually in London. It's all a hallucination. And then you realize you're in London, and then you get put into Wonderland. So
yeah, there's a lot of like psychoses. There's a lot of stuff going on where you're not sure what's real so much. And that even starts off like right in the very beginning when people start turning into the Jabberwock, right?
Well, she goes into an alley and sees like all these people with Jabberwock heads, and they're not there because a woman named Pris, who was actually a nurse in the asylum, finds her, and she's like, "Oh, Alice!" And all of a sudden they're all gone. Fun thing about her is she's a complete alcoholic who loves gin, just like myself. And she's kind of blackmailing Alice, like, you give me gin or I'm gonna, like, I know you're still crazy and I'll put you back in there. I can do it.
Yeah, because isn't there like a whole cutscene where she turns into
I'm getting there.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So Alice goes with her, trying to be like, okay, how many bottles do you want me to get filled today? And out of nowhere, Pris just turns into a Jabberwock, and then the ground breaks beneath you and you fall into Wonderland. Fun fact, in the beta version, she turns into a Jabberwock and you push her off the roof and kill her, and then realize that she's not a Jabberwock. And in London, the entire time you're in London for the rest of the game, the police are supposed to be chasing you and you're supposed to be avoiding them.
Okay, so instead of what we actually get during the gameplay, which is just walking around like the different areas of London, we were actually supposed to be in like a chase sequence where there was a threat.
Yeah, like
but
you
now
could like you could throw stuff at them. You can jump across roofs and different houses.
See, that's the thing about the gameplay and the control. When you're in these sequences, you can't do shit.
No.
And that's another thing, too, is if you want to, we can start talking, now that we've just kind of established that stuff with London, there's a major plot point that we get, at the very end of it. But through most of it, it seems like kind of filler, which I hate to say it. I mean, what do you think about the story of all the London segments?
I love the story of the London segments because it's what's truly going on.
Yeah.
What's happening in the real world is messed up. It's completely fucked.
Well, without getting to the end of it, I mean, let's talk about, what's going on while we see her in this area before we get to, like, the final confrontation. Because isn't she meeting up with all the people that she knew at the asylum one after another?
She meets up with Pris the first time, and then...
Nan, I think?
Yeah, she meets up with her old nanny that was her nanny before the fire, who's now a prostitute. And she actually is probably one of my favorite characters in the whole game.
With the giant anchor on her chest.
Huge, like, triple XL woman with the biggest rack and an anchor tattooed on one tit, and just blunt and amazing and so much fun. I love her. She's fun. You meet up with your lawyer, like your family's lawyer at one point, which is kind of a hallucination.
Yeah, because you go to his house and then something happens and he disappears.
Yeah.
So again, that's another example of like you reconnecting with these old characters from her past, and sometimes you don't know what's real and what's all in her head.
Yeah.
Even in the real world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that I think is really interesting about that, because each of these characters give you a little bit of the plot and the storyline of what's going on with you since you've been out of the asylum. Some are saying, we'll bring you back in. Others are saying, everything's fallen apart, but you need to go and put the pieces together and find out exactly why your house burned down, because it wasn't your fault. Like, there's a lot of guilt in this game.
Yeah, a lot of guilt. And it's not just guilt with the fire, it's also guilt with things that are going on in this story. So. Yeah,
I think the stuff, it all hangs on Bumby. And it's all fucked up. But let's talk about what's going on in Wonderland, because that's where all of the action is really happening.
Well, I was trying to get to that point.
Go for it.
So all that stuff's going on there, where as in Wonderland, it seems peaceful and serene because, as you know, in the first one, you beat the queen and everything's happy now.
Yeah, everything resets. Everything's back to being good.
Yeah. But there's this force that it's like, okay, everything's good. I'm going to, mess that up for you. And I'm going to completely destroy it and erase it and obliterate it from your memory and from existence.
Sure.
It's the train, which it's this huge monstrosity that out of nowhere just shows up, and all of a sudden the world's not there anymore.
It looks like a bunch of cathedrals mashed together.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's this really cool, giant, Gothic-looking train, very, Catholic church-like sort of structure. I mean, it's very impressive in design, and it's got all these stained glass windows that are red that are lighting up each of the different sections, and then the front of it, I mean, you always see it from the side profile, but it still looks cool as hell.
Yeah.
So I like it. I like the design. I like the concept, but it's just sort of showing up in cameos.
Well, the thing about it is, it's showing up because you're forgetting parts of yourself and you're forgetting parts of your memory.
So it's like the Nothing from Neverending Story.
It's kind of like the Nothing.
It's just wiping out parts of Wonderland and your memory in the process.
The whole thing behind the game is you're trying to figure out why. Why is this happening? Why is this train here and destroying everything? And then you get to chapter 4. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And then you get to chapter 5 and you're like, this is fucking, what are you doing? No, stop it.
All right. The way that I think about the structure for this game is that it's basically all of the levels leading up to your confrontation with the train and then the puppet master or the doll maker? It's the doll maker.
It's the doll maker.
So that's the big bad of Madness Returns, is this character, the doll maker, who's like a puppeteer and very disturbing character.
Which, for me, he's not as intimidating or scary or imposing as the queen from the first game.
Right.
But, I don't like him. I don't like him at all. Even his design is like, that's not normal.
Yeah, because he just oozes like black
he's got-
congealed blood
he's got
out of his eyes and mouth.
It's sludge. It's like black sludge. He has no eyeballs and just sludge and coming out of those in his mouth. These long fingers, like one of them's missing and it has like these jagged nails. He's held together by like string and wood and nails
Wires and metal.
He's not okay.
Yeah. It's like a very piecemeal type of character design where you've got all of this stuff just like fastened together with what you would find in like a woodworking class and shit like that.
I don't like him.
Or like a sewing class.
I don't.
No, he's fucked up and really, really gross. And I remember seeing that the character design actually went through a few iterations. Like one of them was supposed to have him like from the waist up, like being one of those, I guess, figures or whatever it is that you like make clothes on.
Mannequins?
Yeah, like one of those mannequins for like making dresses and stuff like that or whatever else. Yeah. It just evolved into what it is, in the game, and in the game it's all fucked.
Yeah, it's like, ugh. So, fun thing about this is like, I'm playing the game. It doesn't, for me, it never felt like an Alice game. It was always, oh, I'm Alice and I'm here. It was never, I'm Alice. It was never like that. But I would go through the levels and I'm like, okay, I can work with this. Oh, that's neat. The very first time I ever got to level 5, which is the dollhouse, I remember like sitting there and not moving and just like, no, fuck this. What is it? It just completely turns.
Yeah, it's a total 180. Like every single level up to that point is you're just revisiting someone from Wonderland.
And everything's beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's like in the either the beginning of the second level, I think it is, where we get this section called the Veil of Doomed, or is that the third level?
That's the very first part of level 3 before you go to see the caterpillar.
Yeah, because level 1 is all about the Hatter, and you've got the Dormouse and the March Hare. And then level 2 is all about the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Yes.
And then level 3 is the Caterpillar.
Yes.
And then 4 is the Queen.
Yes.
And then 5 is the Dollmaker.
And it's like, ugh, no.
What do you think about the first level? Let's talk about how you go through the Hatter's Realm in this version.
It's extremely tutorial.
Yeah.
Because level 1. Duh.
Yeah. It does teach you and ease you into the game and the style of gameplay, for sure.
I was severely disappointed.
Really?
Yes.
Compared to the first game?
Compared to the first one. It doesn't have any similarities to the first one geographically, tonally, colors, nothing.
Well, in this, you're basically going through a factory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of...
Well, it's always been a factory. It's
Yeah.
just, it doesn't have the same feel.
Okay.
So the way I got through it was I convinced myself that it was a different part of the factory. Because you do see Hatter's Realm where you actually play the game, and then you see all these floating islands with different parts. So I was just like, oh, it happened in a different part.
Well, that's the thing too, is like the level structure in this game, they're so big. The levels are huge.
They're too long. And that's not just me. Like, that's an honest complaint from a lot of people, was that there wasn't enough levels, and the levels that there were too long.
Because you can be, I think, the entire run of the game, if you're going at a pretty brisk pace without trying to platinum, you can knock it out in 12 to 14 hours, something like that.
I'm terrible because I've platinumed the game.
Yeah.
And I still try to do everything to platinum the game, even though I've already done it.
Every single playthrough.
It's so hard not to try it. But I think the last time I played it, which I replayed it again last week.
Yeah.
Because I knew we were going to do this.
Yeah. Because it's time to revisit it. And
I took breaks and I actually looked at the time. I beat it in like 8 hours and 52 minutes.
Well, that's the thing too. You're also playing on Plus now.
I'm playing on Plus. I have full health. I have full weapons. I have all the DLC.
And you're skipping some mini games because you have to.
Fuck the mini games.
Yeah, that's a part of this game. That's a huge chunk of this game that you have to get through.
And I wasn't a completionist this time.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Well, let's mention a little bit of the mini games right now.
No.
I don't think there are any mini games in the Hatter's realm that I can remember. I think they start in the Walrus and the Carpenter because that's where you do the boat like side view.
Scrolling.
Yeah, it just reminds me of like all of the old spaceship shooting games where you're floating up and down and across and you've got full control. That's what it is. You're a pirate ship, I guess, or a ship that's captained
You're
by
the SS Griffin.
That's right, isn't it?
It is. It's the SS Griffin, and it's shaped like the Griffin. That's how he came back from the first one. They didn't actually put the Griffin in there. Sorry. They didn't actually put the Griffin in there. They just made him a ship.
Piloted, captained by the fucking Mock Turtle, who is now like Napoleon-esque. For whatever reason.
I didn't even realize this until just now that I'm actually super fucking pissed that in the first one you have some characters that are friendly and help you through the game.
Like the Griffin.
You don't get that.
No,
and
you
it's
don't.
annoying.
Not really.
I'm going to use the word annoying a lot because I don't want to use other words.
Well, fair enough. But the thing is about like that whole bit is, you're dropping bombs, you're shooting cannons forward, and then that's it. You're back in Wonderland, you move on.
There's slide box puzzles where you actually have to find the puzzle box, like the boxes first before you can even do the puzzle. There's those so
it's kind of like almost fetch questing.
Yeah.
For creating a puzzle.
There's the ones where it's music and you have to hit the certain button. And the thing is those are fine when it actually makes a song.
The timing and the tones for those, I mean, it is what it is.
I literally have to turn the volume off and just press the buttons because if I listen to it, I can't beat it.
It took me a few times too. I had to get through it, and I'll agree. I mean, some of that shit was kind of frustrating.
I'm not even done yet.
Yeah, go.
There's chess.
That's right. Right.
There's all the Rodella rooms that you do, like the snail rooms, which have like battles and
those are basically like it reminds me a lot of a mechanic that Bayonetta copied, where you get stuck in a room where you have the option to get an upgrade, and that's what it is. It's to upgrade your health.
But it's not just battles; it's also
run out the
riddles
clock
and all kinds of stuff.
That's right.
So there's that, and then there's your favorite, where you're Alice, but you are only a doll head, and you have to go through obstacles as a doll head and rolling around.
Yeah. So that whole thing, I like the concept behind it, but I'm not a fan of how it wound up in the game. And I don't know if that was an EA thing or if that was some quality control nonsense, but talking about that, in the Dollhouse, the main mini games, you were originally supposed to be able to take your fucking head off as Alice, and Alice would put her head in a Jack-in-the-Box, and that's what would eventually cut to you doing this, like, roll the head across this ramp structure, collecting stuff, and getting to the end.
But no, what it is you're Alice and you walk up to a Jack-in-the-Box and then it springs open and now you're a doll head.
Yeah, and like a doll head shoots out of the Jack-in-the-Box and then it goes through like a house.
It's not fun.
It's a little bit, to me, like tonally separate from what I would think about in a game like this.
We also totally forgot about the Chinese scroll, the Chinese Scrolls 2D mini games where you can only shrink, jump, and dodge, and you have to go through like 3 Chinese scrolls to get up the mountain. Because you can't just climb up the mountain. You have to go into a scroll and go through the mountain through the scroll, and then all of a sudden you're at the new part of the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a side-scrolling paper cut style, and you cannot do any attack functions at all. You're basically just dodging all of these arrows that are being shot at you by crickets and trying to jump without getting impaled on spikes above and below.
Or shot by blazing arrows or fireballs.
Yeah, a lot of fireballs from Chinese dragon statues. Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on. And the pacing of those actually, I think, detract from the overall speed of the game, because as soon as you hit those, you just slow down.
All of the mini games. It doesn't matter which one it is. All of the mini games just put you at a standstill, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. It doesn't really fit, and that's why I skipped them.
Well, do you think if they were a different style or they had a different speed, just cut them out?
Cut them out.
Let's talk about the good stuff, going from chapter to chapter. What's the best stuff in the Hatter's Realm?
I do like some of the enemies, like the iPod cannon. The iPod. It's a huge tea kettle with these
kind of spidery legs.
Yeah, they're metally spider legs that have this giant eye that shoots tea at you. They're fun. I like those.
Yeah. How about the stuff between the trying to get to the March Hare and the Dormouse? Because you got to deal with both of them to be able to get the pieces of the Hatter back together.
I'm going to be quite honest. I don't like it. I don't have many pleasant things to say about the level. I do like not when you go see the Dormouse with all the the molten tea stuff. I don't like that. But when you go see the March Hare, it's pushing and crushing. And I like that level because you kind of see more of the actual scientific abuse that you see in the first one.
Yeah, because in the first one, there's this whole thing about the March Hare and the Dormouse being forced into getting biomech attachments and implants
and experimented on.
Experimentation, a lot of really disturbing experimentation.
And even the insane children, that's where they're turned into the automatons.
That's right. Yeah. But we don't even have automatons in this one. But again, it's a totally different game.
But that's why I like this, because there's one specific level, one specific room, actually, that you go in and you have to jump on these cages that rise up and down and move and all that kind of stuff. But you see all of these dodos that have been plucked naked and strapped to machinery and forced to keep the machines moving.
Yeah, that's right. There's the dodo that has its head removed and it's just running on this gear crank.
Well, it's not really removed. It's inside this spiked helmet.
Yeah.
So he can't get away. And he's just running and running and running. I like that part. It's that aesthetic of, okay, there's still some
disturbing stuff.
There's still something
still
messed
horror
up here
going on.
Yeah.
That's a lot of body horror. That's a lot of biomech horror. It's really unsettling. What do you think about the next level?
Fuck you.
Let's talk about what happens with the Hatter. So we put the Hatter back together, and then we move on.
It's not the next level. I thought you were talking about level 2.
And that's what I'm saying, is that we put the Hatter back together, then we move on, we're back in London, then we go to level 2, which puts us against the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Yeah.
That level... Number 2, level 2. So this is still right out of the gate. This is within the first 5 hours of gameplay.
I fucking hate it.
Okay. Why?
It's actually the level that has the most gaps in the story. You're doing something and then there's a cutscene and things are said and you're like, That was never mentioned. That was never shown. There was no indications that that was happening. So it's like all of a sudden there's a jump into a new story and you're left confused.
All right, so perfect example of that is when we have gotten past everything with the mock turtle, and then we just have like a random encounter with the carpenter, and she yells at him that he's a villain.
All right, so this is what it is.
Killer.
All right, so
fill in the blanks, please.
Start to finish, you land in the diluted depths with the mock turtle. He gives you a ticket to see the carpenter. You go see the carpenter, and he tells you that you need to get the writer of the play and the music and the showgirls.
Because he's trying to put on a theater production. Yeah. He's trying to put on a play, a big thing.
Yeah. So
that's the fetch quest.
You go and you get the writer, you get the music, and you get the showgirls. And right after you're done getting the very last showgirl, you go through a door, and then all of a sudden you're in front of like this cemetery, and the carpenter and the walrus knock over a bridge, and you're like, oh, you're a murderer, you've killed people, you're despicable. And he's like, yeah, well, things have to be it's like, how the fuck did you get there?
Well, I think it's a jarring twist. Like, it's a complete out of left field change.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the design and the look of the cemetery. I like the underwater cemetery. I think it looks cool as shit. And it's something that I would have liked to have that vibe during the entire level.
This is the weird thing about it. I fucking hate this level, yet I still have a tattoo from this level on my arm.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because this is the level I think that got cut the most. Like, so much of this level got thrown on the cutting room floor. Talking about just the design, the look of all of this. Art director Ken Wong had a great team of artists.
I love his work.
Yeah, I mean, it looks
He's amazing.
Incredible. Is the design, the concepts, everything that, you know, we get in the game, but also in the art of Alice Madness Returns book. There's so much that we see that never made it into the final cut.
Yeah.
And there was, I think, an entire section of this, like, level, over half of it, where you were supposed to be swimming through water.
Well,
but instead of that, you're platforming through everything.
It was actually supposed to be kind of like splashed throughout the whole thing. So it would be, oh, I'm walking and the
on top of like the ice caps, and then you dive in the water?
No.
Okay.
It was, I'm underwater, but the water around me is green. Oh, the water in front of me is blue. I'm swimming now.
Ah, that's right, because you would be walking, and then you'd jump into the water in front of you, and then you'd be swimming ahead, and then you'd jump right back out of the water.
Because the water's green, and you can walk now.
That explains it.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a lot of fun, but I don't know if that got cut, because it would have made, I don't know, the engine, because this was built on an Unreal Engine, I think U4 or something like that. Was that even capable with what they were working with at the time?
I'm going to it should have been, but I'm going to say no. And the reason why goes back to level 1.
Okay.
And a major issue of the game that it's not just me, it's fans, it's gamers, and it's game reviewers, and like actual people who make
game critics, everybody. Yeah.
There are no boss fights in this game. And so in the first level, the Dormouse and the March Hare show up in this giant automaton, and it raises out of the middle. They're like, battle time, Missy!
That's right, it's this huge robot that they're piloting.
And whole thing, it's like, you're gonna get messed up. You need to prepare.
Yeah, it looks like a huge iron giant looking motherfucker that's about to like bash the shit out of you with huge robot arms. and it rises in front of you, and it's really intimidating.
And then it just falls apart. And it was said that they did that because they built the boss fight, but the physics and the mechanics wouldn't work correctly, so they scrapped it.
I think that is one of the, I'll say worst, like pulling the rug out from underneath the player that this game does.
Okay, so the first time I played it, I saw that and I saw the cutscene. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And then no fight. I'm like, okay, so they're gonna trick me into being comfortable. I see this.
And then he's gonna come back?
I see. I'm gonna be comfortable, but in the next level, I'm gonna have a really big baddie. That happened. Okay, well, in the next level. Okay. And then it doesn't happen until the end of the game. And it's very disappointing. Like, it's underwhelming, and it's... I love American McGee. I love his work. He's a dear friend. I love his team. I love everything he does. That was a big fuck you to people.
And a huge missed opportunity, too.
I completely understand why, because there was short timing. There wasn't...
Well, let's not pin it entirely on him, because it was
a whole bunch of people, but it's mostly there wasn't enough time.
Sure. And I think, it is what it is. Let's, also say that we've got Benjamin Kerslake, creative director, and Paul Karofsky, developmental director, and, everybody...
Ken Wong, RJ.
Yeah, RJ Berg, who had a huge role in crafting the story overall for this. Which I think the story has a lot of great beats in it, and it's still a good continuation off of what we had initially.
I'm not shitting on these people. I hold them to the highest regard, and I respect them dearly. But as a fan and a gamer, I was pissed.
Well, that's also because you were like diehard hardcore of the first one, and really would have loved something that would have continued that instead of something that, in a way, I think a little bit subverts it.
Well, even the first game aside,
yeah,
I've been playing games since I was 4.
Yeah, like you stream, you're a lifelong gamer, you've had so many games that you've platinumed, and that's just, because you're that kind of completionist. But you know the structure of a good, solid fucking game. And you know what to expect, and, an adventure, and a
and
really
when you
good
take a game that
like
is obviously going to have boss fights,
yeah,
and they're not there, it hurts.
Sure. I mean, it affects you and your interest in the game, definitely. So
because that's another reason I'm like, there's no risk.
Yeah. No threat, no risk. You're not going to get your ass handed to you to be able to move on to the next level.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through this level, and I don't have to beat someone. I'm just going to go through it, and then there's going to be a cutscene where I talk to someone, and then I just do it again. There's no, I'm going to get there, and I'm going to meet this person, and I need to make sure that I get strategy, I get timing. No, you just go through it.
Now, the way that this game was marketed, it made it seem like it was going to be so hardcore and that it was going to...
We'll get to that because we were talking about the levels.
Yeah.
And we were only on level 2.
Yeah, and I was thinking about just, what expectations were. But, I mean, if you want to, let's talk about what happens after the Walrus and the Carpenter, because you don't really defeat them. You just kind of...
You never defeat anybody. The train comes and kills everybody, and you're just left there like, you're talking to them, oh, what should I do? What's going on? What does this mean? And they're giving you, like, little tiny hints, and then the train kills them, and then you wake up in London. There is nothing. There's no confrontation.
And then after that, I think you wind up rocketing into... the next level, that's when you... That
is when you go to one of your favorite bits, and my favorite bits, the Vale of Doom.
Yeah.
Where you're walking through London, and it's starting to decay, and there's fire, and things are blasting. It's literally the Nothing from Neverending Story, but with fire.
It's great. I fucking love it.
And hookah and hookahs and hookah smoke. It's amazing.
Yes. It's probably where, for me, the game starts getting really good. Because I think of the first and second level as like what the game is teaching me on how I need to play, like what the controls are, what the attacking mechanisms are, how I have to maneuver around enemies and through levels. And then as soon as level 3 begins, it's game on. But then it only lasts for a little bit.
Because, so you're going through this amazing, just Deathland.
Yeah. And it's beautiful too. Like, I love the design of it. It looks so cool.
That, like I said, it's one of my favorite parts of this game. It's super short, but just the destruction and dread and fear and sadness. And
the like red, bloody, organic like environment, and like the green water. Again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the first, but it still looks great anyway. The air. Well, I was thinking, you know what I'm talking about.
So you're going through this area that's just being completely demolished. Things are floating. You have to smoke hookah to get to different parts because you're getting high.
Yep. You break the stuff around the hookah, and then
which you're getting high on shisha because that's how you actually smoke hookah.
Yes. Good tobacco high.
Good tobacco high.
Mint. Always recommended.
Highly recommended. And then you smoke a hookah, and you see like one of those statues, but it's not really a statue. It's an actual like miniature mountain that you would see in like one of those Chinese panel paintings.
Yes, yeah, and some of the old, not feudal, but ancient art.
Yeah, and then you shrink, and then all of a sudden you're at the base of the mountain, and you have to climb up, and it's all derived around Chinese heritage and culture.
Yes, history, folklore.
I mean, I love. All right, so I have issues with this level, but one of the things I do love, and it's a very small thing that I mentioned it to you, and you're like, "What are you talking about?"
Okay, calling me the fuck out. What is it?
The floating pedestals and platforms and decorations are mahjong tiles.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
I told you,
fine.
And you're like,
it's
what?
Cool. Yeah, that's, there's a lot of that in there. Like, I remember hearing about this. I think American McGee was talking about it when someone had asked him while they were doing one of their live streams, which they do every week, which we're, happy to be sponsors of. And we totally recommend you checking them out and even watching the old episodes where they're playing all the way through Madness Returns, because it's a lot of fun.
We'll do that plug.
Oh, you know it. The thing was that his development team, I think at Spicy Horse, was saying that, here, go to town. Just throw in the kitchen sink, whatever you guys are feeling, and this level is the result of that. So they brought everything they had to the table from their history and their interests.
He wanted them to make them feel like they could not only like be creative, but express them.
Yeah.
Like express your heritage and how proud you are.
Right.
That's why that's there. And it's not my favorite level. Just because I'm not really fond of the enemies in it. If you take away the enemies, I like that level because it's beautifully designed.
Well, it's also like the old fable of the crickets and the wasps.
Yeah.
And, you got a lot of that. So we wind up, going through all of this paper cut and very, Chinese aesthetic folklore stuff.
Well,
and then we get to the caterpillar.
Well, it's origami ants and actual real wasps.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird, I don't know if it's a disconnect, but for me, it might just be a lack of familiarity. Like if, it's just something that the people who made it dig into on the team. But yeah, you're dealing with the insects, and then you're trying to save the origami characters. And in the process, you have to go through the scroll mini games. And this is where we see our first tile puzzle that we have to move around.
No.
Actually, that's right. It's not. We had to do that when we were finding the oysters. And the star of the big show that gets put on.
The star.
That kills me. Do you want to talk about the delivery of the lines?
We'll get to that when we're done with doing this.
Okay. So, we get through and we finally meet the caterpillar who turns into a butterfly. And then we're back in the asylum.
No, we're in jail.
That's right, because she had a fit and she got thrown in the jail by a couple of cops who know her from before. They're like, oh yeah, we've seen her since she got out of the asylum and we got to throw her in every now and again. She would have been bad on the street.
Yeah, we put her in here because she's a danger to herself and we don't want her getting hurt, and she was having a fit and she blacked out. So we're just keeping her in here for the night. Oh, you're awake, go home. So you get out of the jail, and then, as soon as you go outside, everything just turns white. And then you're in, the dungeon of a jail in London, and as you walk, it starts becoming very familiar.
Yes, and that's, I think, one of my favorite transitions in the game from instead of hard cutting out of the East End of London into Wonderland, we see that Wonderland is starting to grow around us.
Yeah.
And then it reminds me a lot of the, jail catacombs stuff from the first one. When this happens, everything is just all, red and, pulsing. And it's
it just
realm where we see, the guts of the queen again.
So it reminds you of the entirety of Queensland when you're trying to get to the queen.
Exactly. Which is great. I fucking love it.
I mean, even her, you get to one part and her...
It's so familiar. I mean, it's back to it. Not even being familiar. It just looks fucking cool.
It looks amazing. And, you get to a pedestal and then these tentacles, which are the queen's tentacles, come up and just, take you down. And then you're in Cardland.
Yes. And the card structure, it's like the Sky Bridge. Which is what it is.
We don't need to get too in depth about it. I know you don't like it.
It's fine, but it's just, it doesn't have the kind of immersion that I was really getting into when we started seeing the Queen's Realm all around us. I think it's kind of a odd throw because I would have just rather gone straight into the fun.
Well, once you're done with that, you do go straight into the fun.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little stopping block, but I get it.
But you get through the cards, and then you land in Queensland, and it's what you did to her and what you did to her realm, and everything is falling apart.
What your actions have resulted in, especially with the White King.
Everything's decayed. Everything is dead.
Yes.
With the White King, he found out that you defeated the queen, and he went to the castle to kind of take it over.
Yeah, to take the land back.
But not all of her minions were destroyed, and she wasn't destroyed either.
Yep.
And so she bound him and kept him prisoner.
And then you gotta smash through him, so you're killing a good guy.
But this whole thing is, you're going through this area where it's like this because of you.
Yes, this is hands down the best level in the game, in my opinion.
And then
absolutely,
you see death, you see destruction, you see decay.
Yes,
and it's all your fault. And you need to go and talk to the person that you did this to. And the entire time throughout the level, you hear that person warning you.
Yeah, telling you to leave.
Telling you you're not wanted. Threatening you.
And the level, or the enemies in this are great. The card guards, the super card guards, the executioner, which I wish we'd been able to get an actual battle with.
Oh my god,
but
me
we're
too.
evading him the entire time, and then we eventually drink the growing liquid.
We eat the cake.
That's right. We eat the cake. Because drink means shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we eat the cake, and then we just squish him like a bug, which is a funny beat. but it would have been so much better to have like a real fight.
You turn into a giant and you look down at him and he's looking up with you with his mouth open, and then he drops his scythe like, oh fuck.
You're like, clink.
And then you squish him. It's funny, but it would have been more rewarding to fight the bitch.
Yeah, this is another one of those missed opportunity fights. You know, I think it's the second biggest one.
If that was the boss fight and then you played the rest of the level the way that it turns out,
it would have been great.
I would have been fine.
Yeah. Because after that, you wind up doing the giant stompy bit, which I know you're not too big of a fan of.
She's not stompy. Personal joke, sorry guys.
So good. Not even personal joke. You can watch that show on Netflix. You go through that, and then you go through. You see this huge mouth with a tongue, and everything around you to this point has been decayed. Yeah.
Except for one part where it's like a little bit squishy.
Mm-hmm.
You go down this mouth, and everything is blood and stomach acid.
All body
and
parts,
teeth.
innards, eyes. Everything like you're inside of a creature.
And then you
that's
meet
gigantic.
And then you meet the queen again.
You do, yeah.
And she's different this time round.
Well, the last time you defeated her, she revealed your face, and this time she's wearing the face of your sister.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge part of it too, with what's going on in the real world.
Ugh.
So the queen,
this is going to be like a 3-part episode, guys. It's going to be like 3 episodes, all an hour and 45 minutes each. There's so much.
Yeah. Well, let's break through what we can for this one, and then we will come back with part 2.
So there's that, and then after that, you go to the dollhouse.
Yes, which is the dollmaker's realm, which is, do you want to say it? It's fucking Bumby. This is Bumby's realm.
I don't like this area at all.
Up until this point, you have not been like fighting anyone who has a real world avatar.
Well, not only that, but up until this point, it didn't matter.
No, you're just like reconnecting with all the old characters.
Yeah, there was
none of them are a threat to you.
There was no. This is the threat.
The minimal level stuff is that you're putting together the fucking Mad Hatter, and then you're foiling the plans of the Walrus and the Carpenter, and then you're meeting up with the Caterpillar to get some insight before he turns into a butterfly, and then you reconnect with the Queen, who kind of wants to kill you, but more wants you to get the fuck out.
No, she doesn't want to. She wants
you to leave. Go away.
And she wants you to get your shit together.
Yeah.
Put it in a backpack.
And then she gives you a little... Put it in a backpack, get your shit together. It's great. It's so good. But she gives you a little bit of information and then says, here's where you gotta go.
Yeah.
Here's what's destroying... She's basically the fucking... princess, whatever the fuck her name is, again with the never-ending story shit.
She doesn't have. She's the childlike empress.
Childlike empress. So the Red Queen in Madness Returns has been reduced to the childlike empress with tentacles, and it's pretty bad. But then we move on to the realm where the big bad has made his home in the core of Fantasia.
That's why this fails for me.
Wonderland.
This is why the game fails.
Yeah.
In the first one, it's there's something fucking wrong. Oh, that's what's wrong. And everything's trying to kill me while I'm trying to fix what's wrong.
Right.
This is what's wrong. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You get to the last level, find out, and then it's done.
Yeah. There's like the buildup of like a slow burn in a way.
It's not even a slow burn.
But structurally, like if this were a film, I mean, if this were just a feature-length movie, it would be you're dealing with all these people in a town or a village before you get to the fucking haunted house. And then in the last 10 minutes of the movie, you're in the haunted house, you beat the big ghost, and that's it.
But at least in the haunted house movie, you get a little bit of dread and some inclination as to what's going on.
Not if the first hour and 10 minutes is like Troll 2.
Fuck you.
We're like one level. One level, you're fighting the guy at the fucking grocery store. One level, you're dealing with the Reverend. But again, all that aside. This is one where the action really, really kicks in. The threat really kicks in the last level before the final fight.
And in the entire game, you're collecting like these little crystal items that are memories.
Yeah.
Which tell you different memories from different people, like your family, your nan, all
Do you
that
want to talk
kind of
about
stuff.
Some of the items a little bit? Because you've got those, you've got bottles, you've got...
You collect the memories, so you're hearing all these little tiny tidbits, but you're still not able to completely put things together. In the dollhouse, they just like fucking slam you with everything, and everything just it just kind of erupts on you. That, oh, that's what's going on. Oh, okay, that's not right. Oh my, stop. Okay, please stop.
It just keeps going. It just spirals.
It's like
into like the worst stuff.
It just gushes on your face.
That's a way to put it. Sure.
It's seriously so shocking how much information they give you in that one part.
Yeah.
That could have been spread throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that one part is only like 3 hours of the entirety of what you're playing. Like, if you say you beat it in 16 hours, this is just like the last.
It's exactly 3 hours, because we came home last night, you put it on and beat it, and it was 3 hours.
I think I put it on at 9 and beat it by 12. But again, I'm not going full completionist. I'm not trying to find every single memory. I'm not trying to get every single tooth. That's the thing we haven't talked about. Weapons, we haven't talked about upgrades, we haven't talked about any of that stuff. But all that aside, this is where it's revealed that what's going on in the real world is directly affecting what's going on in Wonderland, like it always has, except the person who is controlling you the most is destroying your world.
I would love to break this out. So, as we said, the doll maker, which is Bombi. I do have problems with this, but I'll get into my problem in a little bit. It's shown that, yeah, he's a psychiatrist. He owns this house for wayward kids. He's helping them. He's doing good. It's a ruse and a lie. He knows and is proud of what he's really doing. He is actually brainwashing children and making them child prostitutes and raping them. Alice knows about this, but like kind of turns a blind eye. That's where all the guilt she feels is coming in. Because she's like, oh, it's not my business. She knows what's going on.
Yeah.
The doll maker takes parts of kids, as does Bombi. Put that together. You're taking innocence. It's fucking gross. He's a child molestator. He's a rapist. And it's shown that he had a thing for Lizzie, Alice's sister. Like, you hear memories where you hear Lizzie saying, he's so gross. His hands are like eels. He made me do things I didn't want to do. All this kind of stuff. And then he's like, oh, she was a tease. She got what she wanted. And then they actually show that they don't show it, but in so many ways, but.
Well, they do have a cutscene where it's shown that he is in the house and goes
into her room, and it's heavily hinted that he raped and killed Lizzie
before setting the house on fire.
And then set the house on fire.
Yeah, because the parents tried to get Lizzie out of the room, but the room was locked. She never locks her room. She was not in bad condition when the nurse or the nanny saw her at the morgue, but the parents were completely unrecognizable. They were just charred to,
she
no recognition.
didn't have any smoke in her lungs, and her body didn't get burned, which means she was dead, because bodies don't burn, like dead bodies don't burn like living bodies do.
Well, yeah, and the no smoke in the lungs thing. So it's very much implied that the main bad guy in the real world and in Wonderland in this story killed your sister after raping her. And that's fucking brutal. And we get that, at the very end, and it's just a shock with everything else that's going on, not even accounting for the visuals in the dollhouse, which are just extremely fucked up. It's like the shit from Toy Story, except amplified into just the most defiling, gross stuff you can imagine someone perverted would do to, like, dolls.
You see a baby doll girl with pigtails laying on her back with her legs spread, and you have to go up in between her...
Oh, they're walking through her crotch?
You have to go into her crotch and walk out of her mouth.
Yeah, that's an entryway in this. So, I mean, it's just, it's very disturbed. It's very perverse. That's, what's going on in the doll maker's realm. It's fucked. It's super fucked up.
Just the fact that he is proud of being a child molestator, rapist, and then turning these kids into child prostitutes for money is fucking sick.
And that's the whole point of it, is that, you as Alice are going to kill this person. You're going to end all of this horrible shit that this guy has been fucking doing.
It's also shown, well, not shown, but kind of implied, and when you actually do some studying outside of playing the game, realize that he was trying to erase your memories, not only to cover his tracks, like, oh, if she forgets about the fire, she will never remember that I did it.
Yeah.
It's also because he wanted to make you his prized prostitute and have you for himself.
Yeah, like a madam or something, which...
Have you for himself. But no, not even a madam. It's like, oh, you want to spend
he
real
says,
money?
Prized possession.
Oh, you want to spend real money? Here you go. And also he wanted to fuck you.
It's all fucked up. So when you're going through the dollhouse, you see all of this stuff manifested in Wonderland, and it's just completely fucked. And it's a maze too. Like, it's just a huge fucking maze of all of these doll houses and parts.
Well, it's a maze, but also there's... I don't remember exactly where, but there is one spot in the game that I have progressed to the same part by going 3 different paths.
Yeah. I see a lot of options in this section when you're platforming, and the 3D platforming in this game is a mixture of, like, when it was initially released, described as, kind of the whole 3D Wario 64 sort of thing, but also, what was going on with the trend of 3D platformers, and it's well done. It's incredibly well done.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and the, jumping mechanics, you have the triple jump and the float, which everybody loves. But yeah, it's a great game and gameplay, and in all of this, it's just fucking disturbing. Like, the way that this place looks is it's so unnerving.
Yeah, it's a very unsettling, disturbing, upsetting, gross.
It's fucked up. It's just like all this stuff that, we were talking about it, and we've said it a couple of times already. It's that whole, like, representation of what Bumby is doing to these fucking kids.
So you're on the platforms that are covered in cloth. You see blocks with letters and numbers.
It's all like kids' toys.
It's kids' toys. And you see all these dolls everywhere that there's something wrong with them. Like, they're missing an eye, or they're missing an arm, or they're missing heads. But if you look beneath you, when you're in the first part of the dollhouse anyway, you see all these rotting pieces of dolls that aren't assembled to anything but trash.
It's like a junkyard of dolls and toys.
And it's like supposed to represent his like complete disregard and use of children.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, you're just like, it's not okay. And I mean, for God's sakes, there's even like enemies that are dolls.
Yeah, let's talk about the bad guys, because you're in this, and throughout the entire game, you've been fighting these oily creatures that have doll masks that are called ruins.
Yeah.
And, there's the whole, like, Veil of Doom section, and in the original proposal for the game, a lot of it was referred to as the Doomed or Doom creatures or things like that. But in the final game, they're called ruins, and they just manifest, like, out of the ground, like a puddle of oil, and then this thing pops up, and it shoots fire at you, and it shoots fireballs, like, across the screen at you. But here, it's actual dolls with knives and scissors, and they're baby dolls that, when you crack them open, because you have to hit them to defeat them...
Oh, no, you don't just crack them open.
Yeah.
You actually have to shoot them to the point that their clothes come off.
That's
and
right,
they're completely naked. And then you have to bust their chest open, you see their heart, and then you have to kill their heart.
That's the thing, too. Like, there was...
There is so much, like, even though it's dolls, child nudity in this. And it's...
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah, no, like anatomy or anything like that, but it's all like...
It's like baby dolls.
Yeah.
But it's so just...
Well, the thing that disturbs me the most is that there was a concept initially early on where there was a boy baby doll that would get like cut in half, and it was just all meat. Like they called it like the meat baby or something
meat baby,
like that.
yeah.
Which, I mean, it just makes me think of, some really fucked up Spunkmeyer shit of the way he integrates like meat and fucking beef and...
it's so good.
Doll and porcelain.
I say it's so good, but it's not. It's really not good.
It's super fucking disturbing.
Don't ever do this, folks. Don't.
So gross. But yeah, so these concepts, you're fighting through all of this, and then you get to one of the most fucked up places in the entire game, which is the fucking basement of the dollhouse. Good God.
I love the basement. So the dollhouse whole area is you're in the dollhouse upper bit, and then you're in the basement, and then you go back up to the upper bit, and then you go back down to the basement.
Yeah.
Everything in the basement, I fucking live for.
It's really, really cool, and it's also a lot of like the kind of not tapestry, but it's when you have animals and you're making them into like
taxidermy.
Figures. It's like that kind of experimental taxidermy under glass,
but with baby dolls.
And then there's like skulls, and then there was supposed to be an enemy that we were supposed to see that was a skull.
You're talking about Dog Baby.
Yes. Describe Dog Baby.
So Dog Baby is like this. I think it's a Chihuahua head.
I have no idea.
It's some sort of dog head with big ears and long snout.
And eyes.
And it's this skeletal skull with baby doll eyes in the sockets on top of metal spider legs.
Yeah.
And
again, that Toy Story kind of...
Yeah, and you see him as like you see him in a glass display one time as an Easter egg, but what he was supposed to do was be an enemy that at one point like latches his tongue at you, and if his tongue touches you, sucks you in and chomps on you.
Yeah.
And he's got eyelashes.
It's something that just even more fun. There are so many enemies throughout this entire game that didn't make it into the final cut that are left as like set dressing or like statues.
It's not even just enemies. It's
even just characters, like figures, like
there was
concepts.
There was concepts. There was so many concept and characters that they could have put into this that would have been marvelous and just absolutely enjoyable, but for some reason didn't make it. I'm not going to speculate as to why. I don't know why. I'm not going to put myself in people's heads.
I think there were over like 100 developers on this game.
Yeah.
Like there was a fairly good sized team.
But I honestly do feel like the areas that we did get could have been reduced to put some of that stuff in there.
Shorter sections instead of more extended length sections.
Which is a complaint a lot of people have.
I wouldn't have had a problem if the levels were like patterned out into like section A, section B through like section G of a level. Or like, there are 5 dominant areas of the world in Wonderland that we see. And then the big final battle after you get through the basement and you get through the dollhouse, you wind up on the train. And it's a rotating door of all of your old friends from Wonderland sitting, having a ride.
You're not...
Hi, Caterpillar.
There's no items.
Hi.
There's no items to collect. There's nothing. You literally walk straight. You run into someone and they talk to you.
Yeah.
Then you run straight. You run into someone, they talk to you. You do it 3 times, and then you run into a room, go straight, and then there's the doll maker.
It's kind of anticlimactic.
Spoilers, and I'm also like kind of like, I remember you were playing it for the first time yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm like, here it is. And you're like, what? I'm like, boss fight. You were playing it, and then you beat it. And when you beat it, I said, you did it. And you looked at me and said, what?
I think I said something like, that's it? That's
you
fucking it?
You were like, what? That's it? That's the game? That's it? I'm like, yeah.
I thought I should have like had at least 10 to 15 more minutes of like multiple iterations of this boss.
Exact quote was, I thought I was going to be struggling for the next 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Exact quote.
Yeah, because the way the boss fight seems like, to me,
a boss fight?
Mid-level boss fight. Maybe like first level, second level, because you've got the big figure, his face is in front of you, you've got his hands, which reach out, and you gotta dodge them, and you gotta attack them.
Don't get us wrong. It's a disturbing fight.
It's a fun fight. It's disturbing. It's unnerving.
I don't like the fight.
It's challenging. Some of it's pretty challenging. I almost died, but I beat it my first try.
I don't like the thing.
And let me say, I was playing on normal. I haven't gotten into Nightmare, which I think Nightmare mode has more enemies, more difficulty.
They can damage you harder.
Yeah. Good.
They damage you harder, and you do less damage on them.
Is the game better in Nightmare mode?
No.
The difficulty does not increase the value of the gameplay.
So this is what it is.
Go for it.
I've played the games. I played the game numerous times. I played it on Nightmare 3 times, and I got like maybe halfway through level 2, which is the Diluted Depths, and just said, this isn't fucking worth it. It did not make it more enjoyable. It made it more tedious than it already is. So I quit, and me being the person I am, I found a cheese.
Okay, so
what'd
you find?
I found a cheese where you start the game on Nightmare mode, you get halfway through the first level, and then do something, go to the train, use Hysteria the entire time, and if you don't die or get hit, you beat Nightmare mode.
How the fuck do you jump from the first level to the train?
You have to beat the game first.
Well, once you beat the game,
Once you beat the game, you're able to select...
Go to any chapter you want.
Uh-huh.
That is cheap as shit. God damn.
I'm a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, clearly. Oh, man.
The only one where I really had, the only 2 I had to struggle with.
Oh, for trophies?
For trophies was beat off with her head, which you're the doll head.
Yes. You're rolling through all these areas.
It was off with her head 2. You have to beat it in under 6 minutes. Right. I'm so mad at you because you got it your very first try. I did it for 6 years. And it was the last trophy I got. And then another one was play the game using Hysteria only once. That one was tricky because I'm really forceful with my controller.
Oh, yeah, because you press R3 and then you go into Hysteria mode, which we haven't really talked about that
Well, the thing is, like, I'm really horrible with my controller. Like, I'm really forceful, and I would press it by accident and then have to restart the game.
Oh, man, yeah, because... That's the thing. You eventually learn to go into Hysteria mode, and if anyone has seen, the black and white version of Alice with the blood running down her eyes. It's a mechanic that's included for you to basically have a moment of invincibility before you die.
And all of your weapons are wrapped up in surgical wrap with blood stains all over them. You don't get damaged, and your damage is increased by a small percentage. It's just to it's like a last resort boost.
Well, let's break down some of the technical aspects of the game, because we've talked about everything that goes into the story and the narrative and how it goes. Do you want to talk about what happens to Bumby now? Or do you want to save that for a little bit after we talk about how you progress and what you have to do with the game? Because you've got so much platforming going on through the entire game. You've got all of this really tricky stuff with these vents that propel you into the air.
Oh, the vents are easy if you played the first one right.
Well, sure, but then there are a couple of jumps that I found that were tricky, that you have to move forward through the air and then do your triple jump and make sure you float an extended period to be able to get to the platform.
But floating into vents and floating from vents to platforms is something that you master in the first one.
Yes, and I think it's a little different in this one.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think it's just the control.
I'm not trying to be like, oh, if you don't know that, boo. I'm just saying it's like, for me, that was common sense.
Sure. Well, again, you have to gauge your distance, because there's no recovery. If you fucking miss, you fall.
Which, this came out after the real God of War games came out. We'll get into God of War.
Not Data Boy.
Not Data Boy. The real God of War. Where, you're actually jumping over a chasm and you need to grab something. And you're able to grab and pull. They can do it when they made the first Alice game, and they could do it with PS2 and PS3. Why can't you fucking grab onto something in this?
And pull yourself up, because you're constantly falling. That's a big part of it. Also, the shrinking. You shrink down, you can't do shit except for move. There's never any enemies when you're small, unless you're evading enemies while you're in a. That's the thing too. We haven't really talked about. There aren't really boss fights in the game except for Bumby, at the very end. But there are all these arena brawls that happen through the game constantly.
There's too many.
It's arena after arena after arena. You walk into an area, boom, there's 6 fucking characters around you, and flying enemies too, which...
If there were the amount of arena games that there is in this game, because there's a lot, if there was that and then you had a boss fight, this game would be the shit. But you're just going to do 12 arenas and then you're going to go to a new area and do 12 arenas. There's no payoff as a player.
The balance of arena games versus mini games versus fetch questing versus puzzle challenges to boss fights, the ratio is off. That's just how it is you do not get enough big, bad, singular enemy characters to enjoy and be challenged with.
And not only that, but I hate to say it, but a lot of the areas you're in don't really enhance your story.
Right. They kind of wind up just being now you're doing this, and then you're doing that, and then you're moving on to the next thing. And you don't really get it until the end.
So, I got little fact sheets here.
Little notes.
I have a lot of notes.
Yeah.
But according to IGN and GameStop, and then I forget the third source, this was a poll done by actual players about how the game failed. It was too repetitive. It was not exciting. The story, it was not story-driven enough. Huge issue. There was not enough worlds. Levels were too long. no boss fights, sorry. People did love the visuals because it's honestly a beautiful game, but that only covers the aesthetic. It doesn't make up for actual playing the game.
Yeah, there are some really beautiful levels in Wonderland. The light versions seem kind of out of place if you're familiar with the story and what's going on, especially from the first one, but also
I understand that
everything else.
You beat the queen and everything's supposed to be a little bit okay. There are things that are at peace.
Yeah.
So I do honestly understand there being brighter, happier levels. But there should be this is bright and happy.
But there's something wrong.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that tension, that disturbed feeling, that's the thing, too, that makes me think also about the score for this game. The soundtrack for this game is very important to what's going on. Because that was, a key element in the develop of the game. The sound, the Foley, the ambient music, the score, it was all critical to give you a sense of feeling as you were playing through each of the levels.
There was actually like a structure that there was supposed to be for the game. It was a set of 6 emotions.
Yeah, it was action, suspense, fear, and sadness, victory, and disturbed. So you were supposed to, be feeling that as well as the, I guess, intent of the music to kind of give you that impression. And sometimes it just doesn't hit.
For me, I never felt any of that. The only time I felt anything from what you just listed was disturbed in the basement of the dollhouse.
Yeah, dollhouse and
also,
a little bit of Queensland.
Yeah, a little bit of Queensland, especially when you're walking around and you're hearing all this ambient sound, and then out of nowhere you hear a hissing warning from the queen, and you're like, "Who the fuck talked to me?"
Oh, and that makes me think too. This game was not scored by the original composer who had done the first game, Chris Vrenna, who we absolutely fucking love. And have been able to, meet and speak with, and is just the best. This primarily was done by Jason Ty, with a couple of tracks done by Marshall Crutcher.
Yeah.
And
great score, don't get us wrong.
It is. I mean, it's excellent music, and it's really, really good to listen to. The standout for me, though, is the Vrenna track.
Well, the thing is Vrenna was supposed to do the entire track.
Yeah.
Like the entire soundtrack. And he had made multiple songs, but only one was used and one was released. I don't know what happened to the rest of them. I don't know if they're archived, if they're lost.
Wasn't there something about him not being able to master all the tracks because he had to go and fill in for the drummer who got injured on the Marilyn Manson tour?
Yeah,
he was going to do this, but then he had to go and do a live tour during the making.
That's exactly what happened. Is he had to fill in for the drummer, and I think he did almost 10 tracks. I may be wrong. Don't quote me on that number. But he did a lot of tracks.
Yeah, there are rumors out there about all that stuff. Yeah.
But only one came out.
Right. And the one that did come out is actually...
I love it.
And I think, is that in the
Hatter.
First part?
It's in the Hatter?
That's right, yeah. Because it's the Wasteland track that he did, which... kind of is the feeling of a lot of the Hatter realm, is like it's that sort of dystopian kind of factory shit that isn't really your cup of tea because you're not so much into that genre.
This is the thing. It's like I didn't like the Hatter's realm because I was so used to what it was, which is why I convinced myself, it's just a different part. But going through that different part and hearing that throughout the level was like me be like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a fucking Alice game. This is going to be exactly what I wanted as a fan from the first one. Like, an obsessed fan from the first one. And then I got to level 2 and level 3, and I'm like,
Yeah. Level 2 is definitely, like, one of those that takes the steam out of your wings.
Which
for sure.
I love.
Out of your the wind out of your sails.
I love underwater. I hate underwater levels. Good thing about this is it's an underwater level where you don't have to swim.
Yeah.
So I thought this was going to be my shit. No, didn't happen. I mean, yeah, there's these little enemies. They're not even enemies. Like, you go down a slope and you see a school of fish float by.
Right.
And it's these fish that their bodies are made out of eyeballs and they have fins.
It's great. I love the design. And you do too, so much so that you put it on your body permanently.
Yeah, I mean, it's on my arm.
Yeah, I love that tattoo.
I love the aesthetic of that level, but the actual gameplay and story blow such balls.
You know, that's the thing too, like talking about, and again, you know, I want to address the positives.
Oh, the aesthetic is gorgeous. The entire game is beautiful.
For issues, this is something that brings me to think about this too. I think the first time we do one of those hit the buttons to play the music sequences, one of those puzzles, is in the second level. And the notes are like so washed out when you're doing that. I'm like, is it even playing anything? But there are a lot of really weird audio flaws during the entire run of the Walrus and the Carpenter level. And a big part of that too is also the dialogue. It really sounds like the Carpenter, like his audio mix. And I know, you know, the actor who played the Carpenter, I think Sam Gusway, I forget his name. But it just sounds like he's really hollow. Like the, you know, audio was recorded in a bathroom compared to the crisp clarity of Alice.
I didn't get that. I got him to be almost it was a really weird mix of a bass and baritone in actual tonal voice.
Oh, okay.
Which can give you that hollow feel when someone's like right in the middle of bass and baritone.
Sure.
But my main thing was he talks so fast, but his mouth didn't follow.
Oh, the animation?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the voice cast a little bit, because you've got the original.
We got Susan.
Yeah. Because Susan Brand, she played the first Alice.
Yes.
So she's back for this. And then there oddly was another voice actress who was brought in to do what you were talking about before we recorded, some more posh.
Yeah,
like
I had heard that they had
Anna Swanson or something.
Yeah,
some voice actor.
I heard there was a secondary actress to voice Alice, either in London or something, to make her sound more posh. Like they wanted to have Susan Braun, be Alice in Wonderland, like you know her, and then this other actress was in for when she did all the London stuff, just so you can but they sound super familiar, or similar, and they did that so that you can hear the similarity but know there was a slight difference.
Yeah, and there are, you know, a little moments where when you're in Wonderland and then you go back into London and it sounds kind of, you know, changed. But again, that's the whole thing about the real world and then inside the mind and all that stuff. But then I think his name, Roger Jackson, who plays pretty much fucking everybody. Yeah. He came back too because he was the Cheshire Cat from the first one as well.
Honestly, having Susan and him come back was
that was like the big grounding.
When I found out that they were making this and I saw that they were actually confirmed to be doing voicing.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, here's my money.
They're coming back. It's going to be them. It's going to be Alice and Cheshire Cat.
Which, we'll get on more into this later.
Yeah.
But they might maybe be coming back for Alice Asylum.
Yeah. Alice 3, Alice Asylum, the one that happens right before the first American McGee's Alice.
If you're a fan, like
having them come back would be badass.
I mean, it would just be the perfect wraparound.
Well, for now, we've dug into like so much of this game. We have so much more we can talk about.
Oh yeah, like I said, this is going to be like a 2 or 3 parter. We knew this before we even started.
Yeah. Overall, there are a couple things that we definitely have issues with, but still, I mean, this game has like a 9 out of 10 rating, even on like fucking IMDb, where they're like posting games now.
I saw 7.3.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That might have been on like Game Critic or some other platform or something
No,
like that.
I got
Really?
it was Game Critic, GameStop, ING, Eurogamer, like a whole like
Yeah.
everybody. The consensus is 7.3.
Like the Rotten Tomatoes score for games.
But it was also like an older review,
Gotcha,
so
gotcha.
don't quote me. But also that's kind of where I personally place it.
Yeah, I think it's in the good above average level for sure.
I play it so much because it's something that I can play and I don't have to focus on. I play it at leisure when I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I do too. I like the gameplay during like some of the arena battles when I'm fighting like some of the colossal ruins and stuff like that.
Those guys are a piece of shit.
And I didn't really dig into this with you, but like your 4 main weapons, you've got the Vorpal Blade, you've got your Pepper Grinder, which is a projectile, basically, shooting your fucking machine gun.
Peppercorns.
Yeah, and then you've got the Hobby Horse.
Which is my favorite. I love the Hobby Horse.
Yeah, which is the big melee weapon. You just, use it and beat the shit out of people. And then you've got the Teapot Cannon, which is kind of like your grenade sort of
it was
projectile.
A lot of fun watching you play.
Yeah, okay.
Because
how's that?
You use the Pepper Grinder 98% of the time.
Well, I mean, for some enemies, I think
you are literally standing on top of an enemy using a pepper grinder.
Yeah. I think the Pepper Grinder, brings down the enemy's life a little bit, and then I finish them off with the fucking Hobby Horse, or I swap between the Pepper Grinder and the cannon because just back and forth because they overheat.
I rarely use the cannon.
Okay.
I only use the Pepper Grinder when needed.
Yeah.
I always use my Vorpal Blade all the time.
I barely use it. Like I use my Vorpal Blade to fucking break boxes and shit. That's about it.
I never saw you use it.
Not during like boss fights.
No, I always use my Vorpal Blade and my Hobby Horse.
Okay. You're a melee gamer.
Well,
we'll see how that pans out for you when we play Super
I do have a
Smash
Vorpal Blade,
Brothers.
so
You do, yes. That's the thing too. Is like, we're fans. We're fans of the Alice series.
Yeah.
We're fans of American McGee's for sure. The fan base is very, very vast and sprawling for these games, especially for Madness Returns.
And ravenous.
Yeah, they're hungry. They're thirsty fucking fans.
And they will attack you. And like,
yeah, that's why you're kind of fearful that you're going to get some shit for this one.
it's like, I feel like I'm going to be attacked, but it's like, okay, so I have memorabilia and I have 3 Alice tattoos. Like, it's something that it is a huge part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I love it. Don't tell me I'm not a fan just because I don't like this. I don't like most of this game.
That's the thing. Like, you got to take the good with the bad.
And I do. It's like, I know that I have so many issues. I mean, if you were to think, like, if I never were to say that I love Alice or that I was a fan, you would think that I think this is the worst game ever made.
And it's not.
It's not.
By any means.
I just have a lot of problems with it because of my expectations, story inconsistencies.
Well, it's the thing, too, is, like, it's not all just subjective opinion stuff. There are actual, like, objective technical issues, narrative issues,
it's mostly
gameplay.
It's mostly technical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that, a few things hadn't been cut. I wish that the structure was a little bit more solid and the pacing was a little bit more fluid.
I wish things...
But, these are like nickel and dime things because overall it's still an impressive feat that this game actually even fucking exists.
And it's amazing. Like, honestly, if I have put myself in that box where it's like, if I didn't know about the first one, would I still like this game?
Sure.
The answer is yes.
Hell yeah.
Abso-fucking-lutely. However, if the first game did not exist, I would like this game more than I do.
Expectations?
I had to, like I said, it's not just expectations, it's inconsistencies in backlore and story and overall tone.
Well, I agree with you, but I think, after having beaten it fully, like, the tone of the sections of the game that are very dark and brooding and uneasy and disturbing are the most effective. The ones that are more adventurous and more fantasy based, I think they're good. I think they're great, but they're not what draws me and my interest into this game or this world.
No, what drew me in was the Veil of Doom, Queensland, and the Dollhouse. Like, for me, those are actually so well structured, both mechanically, technically, and story-wise, that it makes the game great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's replay value for sure. I mean, you're talking about, you replay the hell out of it.
Well, I've played it 15 or 16 times, and it's only been out for 7 years.
Yeah, so you beat it, about twice a year, which...
I play it a lot, yeah.
But I think, we have plenty more that we can delve into on this. But if there's anything that you want to throw out to cap off what we've been talking about, go for it.
Well, I know we're wrapping up this episode. We are gonna do a part 2 more than likely. Just because, like, I have a literal binder of notes that it's handwritten notes about this game that I want to not only address, but if you comment or challenge me or do anything of the sort, you may win the opportunity to get copies of my handwritten notes about this.
That's right.
So Patreons, do it, because I think it's going to be fun for you.
Yeah.
So that, I want to, again, always shout out American McGee and Martin, I don't know your last name. They're doing Alice. He's Brit. He's amazing. Bald. Great. They're doing Alice Asylum, which is the third game, which is a prequel to the first one. Promises to be darker, which is something that's, for me, a great thing, and a lot of people would appreciate that as well. They are doing incredible work. It's stunning so far, and just what they're wanting to do is going to enhance everything.
That's another thing, too. We haven't even talked about the whole thing about dresses.
Oh, no. We'll get to dresses later.
Yeah.
But
follow American McGee. Follow him on YouTube. See the incredible work that's being produced right now. He has a fantastic team of artists and designers who are making some amazing stuff. But yeah.
Also, do his Patreon, because he needs patrons to actually make it happen, because it's not a fully funded thing. You gotta...
And we want it to happen. We want that next game.
I need it to happen. Raise your voice. Make this happen.
Yes.
Also, he does Mysterious, which is him and his almost wife. They do Alice-based jewelry and purses and memorabilia. It's great. It's fun. But yeah, I just say check out American and Martin. Check out American McGee's Alice Asylum and support that. Of course, like I said, support us.
Yeah, for us, if you guys feeling it out there, listening to us, want to check out what we do outside of the show, follow us on the Facebook feeds, the Instagram feeds, the personal ones. I'm Mr. Andrew Hawkins. Deborah, you are?
I am asylum.wonderland.
That's it.
Wait, asylum.in.wonderland, all lowercase.
Which you've had that handle.
I have had
for like over a decade?
I've had asylum.in.wonderland as my handle for 15 years?
Yeah, you've been Asylum in Wonderland as long as I've known you, and I remember all of your friends saying that you've had that since high school.
No, it's like since middle school,
yeah.
And I'm getting up there.
Well, yeah. Hit us up, folks. Check us out if you want to follow, pledge, whatever you want on Patreon. But what do you got?
Yeah, like I said on Patreon, I have my binder of notes. Well, it's like 8-9 pages.
Yeah, you wrote a short story.
Like fully detailed review. That for like the very like the bestest of best will get that. But I also have like scratched out chicken shit notes. If you want those, let me know. I'll Xerox those too. Yeah, wine all over them. But we also have a bit of an announcement today.
Yes. So the big change that's been coming for Freaky Fandoms is happening. Danny is no longer going to be a part of the show. She'll be moving on to continue doing great work. But now we have Deborah on as our new permanent co-host. So Deborah, you're part of the show. It's going to be both of us doing this every week, keeping the fun going, and we already have a pretty good and exciting topic set for next week, which kind of is related a little bit to this. And I think we're gonna dig in with a little bit of vitriol and some knives and blades drawn when we get there.
We have an episode set for next week, but I think the week after we should do part 2 of this.
For sure.
I want to try to get this out.
Yes. Let's get part 1 of Alice Madness Returns out. Then next week, we will get into what we're going to be announcing on our Patreon here after this airs. And again, everyone, tune in to listen to me and Deborah talk all of the good stuff that we dig into, everything that's obscure, everything that's subculture, everything that's counterculture, films, movies, books, music, games, art, every week, because we're going to keep producing this show.
And this wasn't anything that was planned. Danny just out of the blue said she needed a bit of a break. She's going through some things, and we wish her the best of luck, and we love her to death. This was, I have always been supportive, and I just wanted to do it, and I'm very thankful that you guys, like you patrons, you listeners, you have responded so well. And I love this decision. I mean, this is so much fun, and I just hope that you guys have fun too.
Yeah, and Danny's going to go on to do amazing stuff. She's got Rainbow Reels. She has all of her writing. Everyone, you can continue to follow her at Danny Rat on Twitter, on Instagram.
She's great.
She's out there, doing great work. But now Freaky Fandoms is exclusively me and Deborah, and we're going to just
have a lot of fun.
So thank you for sticking with us, folks. And I think until next time, this is Freaky Fandoms, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.